Hey there. So, we're going to be rambling. We're going to be tapping on a phone this time. So I think I'm going to make that the title. Phone tap and ramble. Something like that. I do have a specific topic I want to talk about for this video, because it was spurred by recent events in my life. Not recent events, just we'll get there. But as always, we're doing a lot of tapping also. People like phone tapping. I'm pretty sure last time I asked, the response was that people prefer tapping on the glass rather than on the metal. And honestly, when I was watching the video back, they actually sound a lot more similar to the recording than they do in real life. But I will be tapping mostly, if not entirely, on the glass. And of course, we'll be going all around the microphone, just because that makes it more interesting. But what I want to ramble about in this episode, video, whatever, I want to talk about the ever-growing cynicism, if you can call it that, of like internet culture. And most importantly, not, I guess, most, I can't think of the word, but as that relates specifically to like popular media, so like movies and video games and stuff like that. Call me crazy, but I feel like within the past few years, like, the discussion surrounding any kind of like piece of media online is almost always overwhelmingly negative. And that's not to say that whatever is being discussed is objectively bad, but it's just like whatever the discussion is, it always seems to trend towards negative whenever it's online. And sometimes, it can be entirely deserved. Some things are objectively bad. But I don't know if it's a shift in me personally, or if it's, the internet becoming too radicalized for me. But I've found myself distancing from that viewpoint where like everything is negative and like nothing is good anymore, Before I really get into it, I do want to point out that it's entirely possible that the discussion surrounding things online has always been overwhelmingly negative, and that it only seems to me as though it's become more negative over time simply because I've become more aware of it. I'm only me, and I can only say things from my own perspective, so I have no idea if that's the case. It could very well be the case, but just speaking from my experience, it seems like as I've gotten older and as I've become more cognizant of the things that people are saying online and stuff, it seems like it's trending more and more towards the negative. I've touched on this in a previous video. I think it was the video, I don't really remember, to be honest. I think it was a video where I was talking about the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which is kind of ironic because it kind of pertains to what I'm going to be talking about in this video. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, I talked a small amount about the cynicism that you see online nowadays and how quick people are to like point out the flaws of every little tiny thing, and how it can really suck the fun out of anything. It doesn't matter if the product is good or bad. When you constantly see that negativity online, it can really get to you. But anyway, the thing that spurred this desire for me to talk about this was last night I watched the movie Madam Web. It's not that new. I think it came out like potentially over a year ago at this point. I'm not 100% sure. But I had seen a lot of people talking about it online when it had come out and like the months following it. And just based on all the conversations surrounding it, I assumed it was like the worst movie ever made, because it seemed like everyone was saying that it was the worst movie ever made. Like there were no redeeming qualities whatsoever. It was just like the most poorly written thing in existence. That was my mindset going into the movie. So when I watched it, I was surprised to find I really didn't hate it that much. Was it a fantastic movie? No. There were plenty of plot holes and things. But I didn't hate it. I don't know. I just didn't hate it. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I just didn't think it was that bad. Again, it was far from like a fantastic movie, but it was also way far from being something that I would like condemn with all of my soul, It's like, it seemed like people were personally insulted by this movie's existence. And that was surprising because of how like not bad it actually was to me. I don't know. I guess it's hard for me to explain like how I actually feel about the movie without being really repetitive. I don't want to keep saying like, oh, it wasn't that bad, it just wasn't that good. But that really was the way I feel about it. Like, yeah, it's not going to win any awards. But it just kind of seemed like a typical like superhero movie to me. Like, I don't know, like they're all kind of fantastic and have a lot of elements where you have to suspend your disbelief. Like they already operate on that premises, right? We're talking about superheroes. The jumps that the movie required me to make in my mind seemed pretty small in comparison to other things that I've seen that I would consider worse. So, I don't know, I was just surprised to see that I didn't hate it that much. Again, because of how many people online had said it was like the worst thing ever. And like I said, when I talked about it in the other video, like I said, I think I was talking about the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, but I'm not 100% sure. It might have just been a fleeting point in a ramble. But I had said in that video that I had found myself falling into that loop where nothing is good enough no matter what, that everything sucks, that nothing ever lives up to expectations, and that every piece of media, video games, movies, it's just all getting worse consecutively year after year. I found myself falling into that. And so seeing all of the reception of Madam Web online and then now watching it again, for the first time. Again, I was fully expecting to be like, okay, this is going to be real garbage, because I kind of found myself in the same camp as a lot of these people that are just constantly shitting on everything. But again, I didn't. So I don't know if that's me that's changing, or if like the cynical mindset online is just getting so radical that I'm just not a part of that anymore. I kind of hope, well, I don't really know which one I hope for, honestly. I guess they're both potentially beneficial. I said in the Obi-Wan Kenobi video that I was kind of disappointed in myself in a way for being the way that I was. I don't really want to dislike every single thing that I watch and consume, I don't want to hate all the video games I play and stuff like that. I would much rather just be happy. But at the same time, I will admit that there's like, I don't also want to just be like a mindless consumer. I want to still have standards. I don't want to just buy everything and say it's great and just cope with it to myself, you know. Ideally, I would want everything I consume to be of the utmost quality, but obviously that's not going to be the case. But I do think there is a ideal middle ground where you're not just a mindless consumer, but you're also able to enjoy things for what they are, you know? I think if you're constantly negative about things, you're just bound to like become depressed, essentially. I mean, like, call it whatever you want, but like, that can't be a healthy mindset to constantly be thinking like, oh, everything is just so bad these days, you know? Not even the movies are good anymore. It's like, no, there's no way that's healthy, you know? I think it kind of stems potentially from the kind of like mob mentality of the internet, but also like, it's getting really hot in here. I feel like there is more now than ever this like desire to be seen as correct on the internet, or at the very least to not be seen as wrong on the internet. And I feel like being negative about things is a safer bet when you're displaying your opinion publicly than saying something positive about something, saying you like something. Because nobody wants to be that one guy that happens to like this thing that everyone else thinks is the worst thing ever made, because then you just look like a mindless consumer. But when you hate on this thing that everyone else likes, I feel like the difference in how people treat you is substantial, you know, to the point where it's like the personal negativity you'll incur for being the one guy that thinks negatively about something that everyone else thinks positively about is less than the negative penalty you'll incur if you're the one guy that thinks positively about something while everyone else thinks negatively about it. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but it seems that way. And if that is the case, then it would make sense as to why it seems like things are trending towards negative, you know, a negative response, just because it's safer. And it seems like more and more as time goes on, it's important to people to be seen as right, you know, everyone. And I mean, it makes sense. It's not even something that the internet invented. Everybody, you know, it comes from the tribe mentality, right, of human beings. We are social animals, and we want the approval and the affection of our tribe. And the internet is just a really great way to get that, like, feeling, you know, on a huge scale. It's just that because of what the internet is, it manifests itself very vehemently, you know. And again, I just want to reiterate that things can be bad. Like, products can be bad. And I will be the first to admit, or, well, I will not be the first to admit. Plenty of other people have said this, but it does feel like these big corporations are getting lazier and lazier, you know, because it seems like more than ever, it's not enough for these corporations to simply make a profit. You have to make insane profit. You can't just make a little profit. A little profit's not enough. You have to make profit on top of your profit. You have to make the insanest margins possible. And it seems like at this point they've realized, well, we can't really squeeze any more money out of these people. So what we'll have to do to increase the profit margins is to reduce the quality, you know. People have started calling it like shrinkflation and all that stuff, where you're paying the same amount for goods, but you're getting less for your money, right? And I think that extends to media. So like movies and video games. Video games specifically is like a good example simply because, judging a movie is a little bit more abstract. It's a little bit more subjective. Whereas, like, when it comes to video games, you can, like, judge it for the objective content that it contains, like how much content it contains. At the end of the day, there is still a lot of subjectivity when it comes to judging the quality of a video game. But I feel like there are more objective qualities that you can point to say, like, yeah, okay, look, when Call of Duty released back then, it had 100 weapons, and now they only have 20 weapons, or whatever. It's an abstract example, but it makes the point, So I feel like in that sense, you do kind of see that trend where things are getting a little lazier, potentially. So that's not cool, So it's not like all criticism is unjustified. But criticizing something just for the sake of, like, criticizing it is really unhealthy, I mean, how many YouTube channels are there where the premise is just pointing out how shit, like, modern movies are, like, you've seen them, I've seen them, they get recommended on YouTube all the time, they've got millions of views on their videos, and they just talk about how shit every, like, major movie is and how much worse they are than movies in the past, how much worse the writing has gotten. There's a lot of cynical YouTubers out there, and that's fine if there's, like, a lot of cynical, like, bad quality content being made, but how many YouTube channels are there out there that celebrate really good things, I can't really name any, if there are any. Maybe that's just negativity bias, I don't know. But yeah, I can't personally think of any channels on YouTube that celebrate good movie making. But I can think of a lot, that, condemn bad movie making. And take for that what you will. I mean, I don't know if that really means anything. I guess you could just argue that it simply means that people are more prone to enjoying content that condemns movies rather than praises them, I guess. I don't know. There's an airplane going overhead. You can probably hear that. Sorry about that. But either way, it's an unhealthy mindset, and it's not confined just to YouTube. It seems like any kind of online forum is going to have a lot of people, like, shitting on it, like anything, Another great example is, like, video games. I spend some time on Reddit, and especially when I was, like, getting into, like, Modern Warfare 2. It was the last Call of Duty that I bought, and I hadn't bought a Call of Duty since, like, Black Ops 1. It had been a long time since I owned a Call of Duty, and I was getting into it. I was having a good time. And so I was like, well, let's see what's going on the Modern Warfare 2 subreddit, because it's like, it seems like a perfect place, It's like, okay, I'm having fun with this game, so I'll go to this place and be surrounded by a bunch of other people that are also enjoying the game, It's the idea in your mind. But then you go there and you realize it's just a bunch of people that seemingly hate it. I think the truth of the matter is simply that the people that are going to be on that subreddit or be on that forum or be posting on Twitter or making YouTube videos about the game, those are the people that are the most passionate about it. But that also means that they have the highest standards and potentially the most unrealistic standards of what the game should be, which is why their opinion tends to trend toward negative, because they're not, I can't really think of how to word this, but, like, yeah, they just have really, really high expectations that are, I mean, to say they're unattainable is perhaps giving too much credit to like these big corporations, because again, I'm not trying to be a mindless consumer. Again, things can have flaws. Modern Warfare 2 had plenty of flaws. Movies can have flaws. But can you still have fun when you play them, when you watch them? Can you still enjoy your time spent in their company? Like, yeah, I think you can. And more importantly, the main point I'm trying to make is simply that I do believe it is an unhealthy behavior to just constantly surround yourself with that negativity, you know? To feed into that, to buy into that. I don't think it's healthy. The other example that I had for this video regarding my sudden like realization that maybe I'm not a part of that crowd anymore, if you will, was the Acolyte, the new Star Wars show. After the Book of Boba Fett and the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, I had basically decided... There's someone at the door. I had basically decided that, you know, I was done with Star Wars, because I do think those shows were just god-awful. And I was like, you know what, Star Wars just isn't for me anymore. I guess it's just like, I'm just not the target demographic, so I'm just not into it anymore. And that was fine. I was willing to let it go. But then my dad was like, hey, do you want to watch The Acolyte? And I was like, sure, yeah, why not? I had no reason not to. But I had seen people talking online about it being bad. Now, to be fair, I was not really a part of this discussion as much as I was a part of the discussion of like, I mean, I wasn't a part of the discussion of Madam Web being bad. I just saw more of it, I guess. I don't know. I have seen people talking about The Acolyte being bad, but I've never really read into it, you know. I don't really know why they think it's bad. So again, I went into it thinking it's going to be bad. And I mean, I also had that as my own opinion, just simply because the Book of Boba Fett and the Obi-Wan Kenobi show were so bad, you know. I didn't really need to see anyone else say like, oh, this is going to be really bad. Like, I already kind of had that opinion myself just because of the other series that had come out. And so I was surprised to find that when we watched it, it really wasn't that bad. I don't know, maybe my standards are degrading over time as we get more numb to bad stuff. I guess you could make that argument potentially, but there's just like no way. At the end of the day, my opinion on The Acolyte is that it doesn't feel very Star Wars, in my opinion. But it's not poorly written, really, at all. That's really it. It's like it's fine. It's pretty fine. It just doesn't really feel like the most Star Wars thing I've ever watched in my life, and it's also a little boring. I would say that's like its biggest flaw, is just that it's boring. It's like I'm just not super interested in like the plot. It's basically like a murder mystery, I guess, but then they like reveal the secret like in the second episode, so it's like, okay, so then it's just them like running around the whole time. I don't know, it's just not that interesting to me. But it wasn't bad. Like when I watched the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm pretty sure that was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And I came to that conclusion completely on my own. I mean, I feel like anyone that watches that would feel that way. It's written so strangely, and the scenes just don't make any sense. And it also seems like really out of touch with its own like source material, like with the lightsabers not slicing people and stuff like that. You know, it's like, did they not understand how like lightsabers work and stuff like that? The Obi-Wan Kenobi show was just really, really bad. But the Acolyte is like, yeah, it's just a show. It's just a show, and it's like, it's really not that bad. So again, I don't really know why people were saying the Acolyte was bad, but I just didn't find it that bad myself personally. Again, it was the same thing as Madam Web, where it was like, yeah, it's not really that good, but it's also really not that bad. So yeah, I don't know if I've just managed to shake that mentality, or if things are just getting so bad that my standards have fallen, or what. But I have to say, regardless of why it's happening, I, I feel happier in a way. I have to admit, it kind of feels good to be able to just enjoy things, you know. It's funny because that like negativity mindset, that negative mindset, it's very addictive. I don't know why. I guess people have said that human beings have like a negativity bias as part of like survival instincts, I think, or something like that. So I guess it's just embedded in our instincts to enjoy being negative towards things, or just not to enjoy it, but like to have a predisposition towards negativity, you know? And because of that, I feel like the negative mindset is very addictive. Like you can find yourself falling into that trap very easily and like getting stuck there. And like I said, now that I feel like I'm almost like free of it, I feel better. Like I feel happier all of a sudden. And it's like, again, these things I'm watching, Madam Web, The Acolyte, they're not good. But I still am happier than I ever was, like, watching anything else with that same mindset. I don't know, it's just like, I guess it's just an example of how, like, your own personal mindset can have a huge impact on the way you absorb anything, you know? If you go into something feeling very negative, you're probably going to have a bad time regardless of how fun or good it actually was, you know. I don't know. And obviously this all just happened within the span of like a couple months now. So my nose is itchy and I don't know why. So who knows? Maybe it's only a temporary thing and I'll go right back to being negative again in like a month. But at least for the time being, it feels pretty good, not gonna lie. It does truly feel like I've like broken free or something, you know. It's like, especially when you see other people, and this feels almost bad to say because it's like, okay, I'm just gonna say it and then you'll understand why it seems bad, but it's like when you see other people like not having a good time, it almost makes your good time feel better because it's like, I could be having a shit time like them, but I'm not. So like, I'm really grateful that I'm not having a shit time, you know? That sounds bad, obviously, but I think in this particular instance, it's okay. Obviously, I'm not going to extend that to like other aspects of life. I don't see a homeless person and feel good about myself or anything like that. But when it comes to people just crying about shit on like Reddit, you know, I can feel good about that. But yeah, I mean, it feels good to be able to enjoy things. I don't know. But yeah, that was the main thing I wanted to talk about, is just like the whole, like I said, it's just like, I guess, cynicism in general, modern cynicism, if you will, internet culture cynicism. I don't know. There's probably going to be terms for all of these things in the coming years or coming decades when they realized that the internet was a mistake. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, maybe it'll change, maybe it won't. But as for right now, it doesn't feel bad. It feels pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. So I guess, I mean, if you wanted to take anything away from this video, it would be just to keep an open mind. I guess I don't really know, because to be honest, again, like, I don't really know what the breaking point was, because I went into these things expecting to not like them, And so it wasn't really like something that changed in me first, So I don't really, and I mean, even if I could, when it comes to like motivational speeches, like, you should do this and be this way, it's like, fuck that noise. Like, I'm not you. I don't know who you are and like what you've been through, and like I've always found those things kind of pretentious in a way. But yeah, I don't know what it was. It wasn't me. I didn't really choose to become not negative anymore. It just kind of seems like that's happening against my will, and I'm fully on board with that. Because yeah, like I said, I went into these things expecting not to like them, and then I came out of them thinking, that really wasn't that bad, and that felt good. So I don't really know if there's any message in there. I don't know how to like turn that into something for you, like, I guess you just gotta really scrape the bottom of the barrel. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe I'd hit such a deep point. My expectations were so low that literally nothing could like be worse than my expectations. So by default, everything just kind of started becoming better. I don't know. I don't think I was that cynical, but maybe I was more cynical than I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, I don't really think there's any kind of message you could take out of that. But it was just something to ramble about, and it was something I've been feeling lately. Again, like I said, it literally just happened last night, and I was like, okay, well, I guess we're looking at a new Connor. I don't know. But it just felt good, so I wanted to talk about it. I knew it would make a good ramble. So how long has this been? Does that say 34 minutes and then like minus like a minute or so? So we're at like maybe like 32 minutes long, maybe? I'm not 100% sure. I always have trouble reading that because it's so small. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this ramble, the tapping. Someone just left a comment on my video saying they had systematically gone through and watched all of my rambles up till this point. So here's another one for you. That person, you know who you are. I imagine you'll watch this one if you watched all. I mean, they said there were like 50 other rambles in that playlist. So that's a lot of rambles to watch, especially considering they're like almost all like 20 plus minutes. That's a lot of rambling. I can ramble about a lot of things. I can't be stopped, all right? I can't. Eventually I will run out of things to ramble about, I guess. I don't know. Honestly, probably not, because I could always just ramble about something I've already rambled about. I mean, arguably, the thing I rambled about in this video was something I'd already kind of touched on before. So maybe nothing I do is original. I don't know. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. If you did enjoy and you've made it to this part in the video, maybe, I don't know, subscribe. I mean, if you made it 32 minutes into this video and you're like, okay, this guy's making some good points, or this guy's making some good sounds with his mouth, or this guy taps good, or maybe, I don't know, like, drop a subscribe. You do you, but it would help me out. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will catch you later.